I'm here at UDS in Brussels, Belgium. I'm with Dan Chen. He's a very active Ubuntu community member, and he's active in a lot of places in the community. And Daniel, I know you've been active in the community for a couple years now. I want to ask a couple things about what motivates you to stay active in the community.
Well, I think, Amber, it's very important to remember that not everybody has the time to really, or the resources to really devote to fixing things. And because we're all trying to really make Ubuntu a very, very good, accessible, usable, pretty desktop and server environment, or whatever environment it really comes across as. Just for me, it's been a real learning experience to just see all the problems that are there in the desktop and to help fix them. So because there's never an end to the list of things that can be improved, I think that's really important.
I know I've seen you in a lot of areas of the community, and I've seen your name on various bug reports of different kind, be it kernel or be it even in other distributions, some of the things that you help with and fix. But I do know that I sat through a couple sessions that you gave on sound, and I know that's a very touchy subject in any Linux environment. How has sound, or how was it when you first started getting involved in Ubuntu, and how has it progressed today, and what do you think the future in 10.10 for audio in Ubuntu is looking like?
Well, when I first started working on Ubuntu development back in 2005, it was a little more fragmented on the audio front, a little more simple in terms of just the software architecture and things like that. Simple in the means that there was a very traditional, very accepted model of going about and doing things at the code level. And that has changed tremendously in the introduction of various frameworks, like Polyp Audio, which became Pulse Audio. And Pulse Audio has gotten a bad reputation in a number of circles because of the way it was integrated in earlier Ubuntu releases. But fundamentally, Pulse Audio makes much more stringent requirements on the underlying pieces of software and makes certain expectations about the hardware itself. And those things, those conditions were not even being satisfied by the earlier versions of the software. So what we've seen is a tremendous churn really in the number of fixes being applied to software all over the place, be it server-related software or desktop-related software or even mobile kind of software. All these pieces really do touch various parts of the audio stack. And I mean, something as unrelated it sometimes has the very, very significant impact. And what we've seen on the audio front is a slow but steady consolidation of those efforts into fixing things that make Pulse Audio work much better. What can we really expect in 10.10? Well, because it is the release after a long-term release, a long-term support release, we can look forward to slightly more interesting features. We'll probably be integrating features from the main branch of Pulse Audio, meaning we'll gain things like better threading, native equalizer support, which some people have been asking about on the mailing lists. So on the whole, it's going to be kind of exciting in terms of just the infrastructure. In terms of the UI, we'll definitely see things like a more integrated kind of indicator sound venue, possibly tying in ways for the user to integrate and choose his or her own sound themes and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of really exciting, really fresh ideas coming out of the user experience and desktop teams.
That's exciting because I know early on I had issues with sound like a lot of people did, and now with Lucid, my issues for the most part have just magically been fixed. So that's an exciting future to look forward to. And because you are such an active community member, if someone wanted to become active, they just got their Ubuntu computer yesterday, and now they I want to get involved. How can they do that? And two, if they're already an active member or already contributing in some ways, but want to get involved in the sound aspect, an audio aspect of that, how can they get involved with helping with that?
So there's definitely a dearth of developers, meaning all across the board. You don't really have to have a technical savvy to contribute to Ubuntu. And that's one of the things that makes Ubuntu really appealing to a lot of people. You can get into advocacy, you can get into documentation, you can work with local teams in raising funds, you can do technical things, infrastructure, code. There's just such a wide range of things. As someone who initially started off doing documentation and then moved more into doing the technical bits, the underlying infrastructure, it was very important for me to have people to turn to. The Ubuntu Wiki has some information under the Ubuntu Developers section on ways to get involved. So if you're really kind of itching to get involved in the technical side of stuff, there's definitely a path to that. You can go through in any number of ways. There are lots of teams now, and you can become an Ubuntu member that way, and then contribute fixes, documentation, patches, things like that. And eventually, after working alongside members of another team or inside the team that you're really interested in, you can, I guess, essentially nominate yourself for enhanced privileges and so on and so forth. And there's an infrastructure there in place. One of the more common ways to go through, regardless of whether you're involved in Ubuntu directly or in one of its derivatives like Kubuntu or Edubuntu or Xubuntu and I guess Lubuntu eventually, is to talk with the councils for some of those teams and work alongside the developers. Most of those developers hang out in one or more of the development IRC channels and on the mailing lists. So you can definitely go through and ask for help, and that's really one of the most fascinating ways to go forward on that direction. In terms of audio, there is an Ubuntu audio dev launchpad team that you can contact, and there are a number of ways to get in contact with people on that team. So of course, there are members of the kernel team on there, there are members of the desktop team on there, there are members of the QA team on there. So it's again a pretty feasible way to get in contact with people.
Well, thank you so much for stopping by and telling us all about your experience and what you're looking forward to in 10.10 and how people can get involved in the community. Thank you so much.